Um, so welcome. Shall we start, Fiona?
Okay. Morning, everybody. It feels very strange doing this over Zoom rather than actually being in a room with you. But thank you very much for coming along this morning, especially when you've just had another bit of guidance and documentation um, dumped on you, which I'm sure a lot of people are anxious about. I just wanted to say this morning, I'm head of area for secondary postgraduate initial teacher education, and I'm aware that there are SMCs in the room who also work with undergraduate. So thank you for that, for taking trainees up from different routes. Some of what I'm going to say today is focused on postgraduate. My counterpart, Anne Jameson, is currently on sabbatical, so that's why she's not attending this morning. So I just thought I'd take us back to the beginning of the academic year, which seems an awful long time ago now, and take us back to what our overall aims were for the year for our trainees, which were to get 100% of our trainees to be good or outstanding by the end of their training. We were aiming at 60% grade one. Completion rates were, although they're no longer a key indicator for Ofsted, are still something that we very much focus on, because if we do take young people on, or well, not all young people, but if we take people onto our courses, we want them to succeed and we want them to complete their training. And then obviously then there's the employment rates, which we keep a close eye on. So I'm just going to take you through a little bit about that. Obviously, we didn't get to the end of their training. Placements were suspended in March, and we decided that we wouldn't grade because we felt it was inappropriate, because actually for some trainees that last 7 or 8 weeks, they really take off in terms of their practice. And what we did instead was make decisions about whether we were asked by the DfE to make decisions about whether we thought the trainees were on trajectory to achieve QTS or not. Okay. We used the formative grades to inform that decision, but then looked very carefully at every borderline case. And it was at that point that we involved you as SMCs, we involved the ULT team, we involved mentors, we looked at the whole picture and very, very carefully tried to make the right decision for those trainees. Overall, after the end of that process, there were 12 trainees out of 310 who were remaining on the course at that point, who were judged not to be on trajectory to achieve QTS. So that's, I think it's around 4%, which actually, looking at the government guidance about those continuing trainees, they were expecting around, I think it was either 12%, 15%. So actually, in terms of that, they're pretty good outcomes. We will be talking to you maybe later on about placement, about asking for schools to support these continuing trainees, because as I say, we've got 12 trainees who are now classified as not having completed their training, and they're entitled to an additional period of training. We're trying to mirror the SBT1 placement for that period of training to make it easy for those schools who do actually say, yeah, we're willing to support these people. There is actually a nice payment for this, because they're being quite well funded by the DfE. So people who volunteer to take those trainees on placement, there's a £1,500 payment for doing that. Okay, so we will be talking to you about that. We just, because we haven't got the final outcomes, I'm just having a quick look at the formative review grades, where we were at just before placement was suspended. And actually at that time, grades 1 and 2 were around about 80%, which was looking pretty promising actually in terms of those endpoints. Okay, moving on a bit further. Again, just because it gives us a little bit of an indicator of how the trainees are doing in different aspects of their practice. Really positive TS1, TS3 subject specific knowledge, and TS8 were doing very well, and our usual TS5 and TS6 were behind. As expected, at that point, again, trainees often make progress on these later on, but equally, I think we've had lots of conversation around actually these are the standards where the trainees really need experience and to be working with their students over a longer period of time, so that they really know their needs and can overcome them, and they've got more practice at assessment and using that information from formative and summative assessments to inform their teaching. So no real surprises there. Withdrawal rates, again, there was a tiny drop in withdrawal rates, nothing significant. Again, I'm not quite sure what happened between 2016-17 and the following 3 years. Is this course getting more challenging? You know, is it getting more challenging out there in school? Are bursaries bringing in people who perhaps would not have applied before? There's an awful lot to consider there, but we still have got a withdrawal rate that concerns me. So it's something that we will continue to work at. Looking at reasons for withdrawal, quite a few of them around health, you know, a few around I didn't know what it was going to be like. I didn't really understand the demands, and I suppose with there no longer being a requirement for trainees to have school experience before they apply, we are going to be getting that. Just out of interest, I also had a little look at the demographics of our trainees, and in terms of ethnicity of the people starting the course, 304 of them were white, 24 BME, and 4 who didn't identify what their ethnicity was. That continues to concern me year on year, especially in the current context. Comparing that with the workforce generally in teaching, again, there are less Black and ethnic teachers from Black and ethnic minority backgrounds in the teaching profession than in the population overall. But currently on our secondary PGCE courses, we are below the average in terms of non-white trainees. This is a long-term issue which we need to address, but it does concern me. Again, if we look at the backgrounds of the trainees, predominantly from professional backgrounds. So I suppose you could say we're getting very good at training white middle class teachers. That has got that in terms of that representation, role modelling, etc. It's something as a partnership we need to tackle. Just then, some really good news. Despite the massive disruption to the year, when the trainees left, they were very happy with the training that we as a partnership had provided for them. Oops, sorry, I've gone one too far. 92% of trainees completed this survey, so really good engagement with the survey. And for core, 95% judged their training to be good or very good, and for school direct, 97% judged their training to be good or very good. So that's absolutely outstanding, and that's down to you. That's, you know, the training is ourselves and yourselves and everything that they're doing out there in school. So thank you very much for that. That was really encouraging. If we break that down a little bit further, you know, the very goods were up in the 60, 63, 64%, with goods being around 30, 32%. So fantastic. You know, that was, after a really difficult year, that was really lovely to get those results on that survey. And then if we have a little look at the survey questions, the colours here, the red means strongly agree, the green means agree, the purple is disagree, and then we didn't have to have a colour for strongly disagree because there were none of the, no no answer to any of those questions was a strongly disagree. So if we just have a quick look at some, I'm just going to move you to the other side of my screen. So if we have a quick look at the strongly agrees that are heading up for the 70% here. So my training has prepared me to identify and address my professional development needs. Really strongly agree, that many of them strongly agree. Again, if we look at this one here, which is up to about 76%, my training has prepared me for my teachers' statutory responsibility for the safeguarding of children and young people. That's very strongly agree. I'm just going to put my glasses on because I'm struggling with this now. Okay, if we come down to this one here, my training prepared me to teach my specialist subject. Again, you know, over 75, about 75% strongly agreed with that. Just looking at the ones that, there are none that are really negative, but the ones that are slightly less positive, shall we put it that way. And I'm looking here now for the disagrees, you know, the purples here. Okay, so my training has prepared me to communicate with parents and carers. My training has prepared me to deploy support staff effectively. My training has prepared me to record and report learners' outcomes. I know how to promote learners' mathematical skills. My training has developed my understanding of teaching learners with English as an additional language, and my training has developed my understanding of teaching learners from a range of ethnic backgrounds. Okay, so they're the ones that will form part of our improvement plan for next year, and they're the ones which actually we need to work with you to get those scores even more positive than they are there. Okay, let's move on a little bit. So looking at that overall, when we looked at all the responses, for 16 out of the 22 questions, trainees agreed, or 95% or more of trainees agreed or strongly agreed that they had been appropriately trained in that aspect that they were asked about. Last year it was 18 questions were between 95 and 100%. So just to reiterate, thank you very much. They're fantastic outcomes. When you think that the trainees didn't get 7 or 8 weeks of their training in school, to still have such positive outcomes is fantastic. I've gone on one too far now, sorry. I work, as well as our evaluations, we also have what we call student reps meetings regularly throughout the year. And they can be quite, I mean, they don't pull their punches, our trainees, you know, they tell us exactly what they think. And this year, that the atmosphere in those meetings has been really positive. It's been a real professional conversation, and generally the trainees have been extremely pleased with what we've offered them. The niggles are around logistics, about how they're interacting with TDS and things like that, rather than the bigger aspects of our training. Okay.